Well, viewers, when your cars were being picked up from public spaces and gated societies by the authorities in the national capital, we raised your issue. We amplified your voice, questioned the Delhi Babus. We questioned their high-handedness. And today, it's a big win for all of the people in Delhi. Days after Mirror Now's relentless campaign, your voices have been heard. The Delhi High Court has come to the citizens' rescue and has ordered that the old cars that were seized by the Transport Department should be released within a week's time. Now, batting for Delhiites, the High Court has called for cars to be released on an undertaking by the petitioners that they will not ply on the roads of the national capital. The High Court has also slammed the Aam Aadmi Party government, saying that we are not living in a dictatorship. Now, talking tough to the UP government, the High Court has even said the transport body's order has caused chaos and confusion and that no law allows the seizure and non-release of vehicles. Now, it has also set a 2-week deadline for submitting the undertaking. Meanwhile, we should understand that the Transport Commissioner has said he hasn't seen the court order yet. Well, the High Court's order comes just days after the Delhi government, of course, had halted the scrappage drive. And now we here at Mirror Now demand action against the Delhi Babus. Well, why? That's for not paying heed to the citizens' pleas and carrying on with that illegal drive day after day, harassing and harrowing the citizens. Now, they've also ignored their pain for quite some time. The question right now is, will the erring Delhi Babus be booked? Will they be held accountable for harassing the citizens? Will they pay for the damage done to the properties? We will, of course, at Mirror Now continue to ask these questions until the Delhi government acts on this. Now, meanwhile, earlier the Delhi Transport Minister, Kailash Gahlot, talked tough to his colleagues and issued orders to the Transport Department to stop seizing and subsequently scrapping cars that are parked along the roads and outside the houses of citizens. Now, the Transport Minister labelled the actions as evasive and also directed the Transport Commissioner to frame a policy after consulting the government. Now, most significantly here, we would like to highlight a very important aspect of this brazen, unlawful drive by the Transport Department. The very NGT order, which is often quoted by the department here, now time and again the department tries to defend its action and does not sanction seizure of the vehicles. The NGT order clearly says that the vehicles beyond the end of lifespan must be towed and fined, not impounded. But the Transport Department has gone ahead and done so with thousands of vehicles. Now, even the High Court, while granting relief to the petitioner, also cleared the air regarding a National Green Tribunal order of 2015 that had ordered that the end-of-life vehicles could not be parked in public places. Now, the High Court said that the Delhi Transport Department had distorted the original order and that there was no law passed by any lawful authority that prohibits the keeping of such a car, which the petitioner and his family deeply desire to. Now, when it comes to damages caused to vehicles in the process of towing them away, the petitioners demanded compensation towards repairing the damage. While rightfully claiming a violation of their fundamental rights here, the petitioners said that the Transport Department should face court-ordered probe for its seizure drive as it took away cars without actually following any due process laid down by the law. Now, meanwhile,
this is just a beginning of a very good, you can say, system of releasing the cars. You see, the basic, when the law was made, it was made only to control the pollution. Whereas they are not lifting, you see, polluting cars. They are lifting only age-based cars. Where age-based is nowhere in the world. This law is nowhere in the world. There are nearly more than 10 lakh senior citizens in this NCR area who will be badly affected. Some have already been affected because their cars have been lifted. Senior citizens drive car only to a limited mileage. Like Usha Chatrathaman, who was the managing director of Noida authorities, her Honda City was driven only for 25,000 or 30,000 kilometers. That is only the running period. It was just like brand new. And it was lifted because of 15 years and some few months. Now she is a retired 75 years old lady. Where will she go, you see? I mean, that car was only used for going to the market and going to the nearby areas. You see, a senior citizen cannot hire taxis. They depend only on their own one single car. I will request the authorities that they should at least give some relief to the senior citizens. Firstly, they cannot buy any other car, you see, because they are on pensions. Whatever car they have, if the car is polluting, no problem, just lift it. When the car is not polluting and in the new condition, why should they lift it? The age basis should immediately be removed. It should be changed to the pollution based. Nowhere in the world, you see, it is there. I have been to Europe, I have been to other countries also. I have seen people keeping their cars for 35 years and they are not polluting. They are also very strict on pollution. If it is polluting, they will immediately scrap it. But the car is not polluting, then why should it be scrapped?
Well, meanwhile, the BJP and the Congress both have welcomed the High Court order. BJP, however, did not miss the chance to hit out at the ruling Aam Aadmi Party. Let's listen to that reaction.
एवरी टाइम हर बार यही होता है कि अरविंद केजरीवाल कुछ ना कुछ अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अनऑथराइज काम करते हैं विदाउट गिविंग अ नोटिस टू द पीपल हु ओन द व्हीकल्स यू हैव कॉन्फ्लिक्ट दैट व्हाट कोर्ट हैज सेड वी वेलकम द डिसीजन एटलीस्ट these owners should get a time to either they sell up the vehicles or sell it off where they can. But end of the day, we also want that key. What the law says, 10 years of diesel and 15 years of petrol vehicles. If the court says you have to get rid of these vehicles, so we welcome the decision of the court, and I think now the government should do that.
But Transport Minister Mr. Gahlot also issued an order saying that these vehicles should not be confiscated. He just gave the order, and this is a very welcome step for all those whose vehicles were confiscated.
That's what I'm saying, na. Ki, at least they should have got the time now. Without giving a notice, you have started seizing all the vehicles now. At least they should get the time. A vehicle owner should get the time.
Absolutely, but this is a law that has been mandated by the center.
But that's what I'm saying. At least my only point is we should give the notice to the people who have got the vehicles of more than 15 years. They should get the notice. At least they should get rid of that. Without telling them, without giving the notice to them, you're doing taking action on that. Now court has taken a decision. We welcome the decision.
We have respect for the judgment and any direction given by the High Court, and any decision of the High Court should be implemented by the police immediately.
Well, at the moment we have Mr. Ritvik Kalsi, a car owner, and also we have Sahil Mongia. He's an advocate from the Delhi High Court who's also joining us. Let's, in fact, listen to first Mr. Ritvik. Mr. Ritvik, if you could take us through what are the kind of problems that this particular issue has been causing to the senior citizens. You must be, of course, in touch with multiple people, not just senior citizens, multiple people, of course, who own cars which are old. There is sentimental value. Some of them, of course, cannot afford to buy a new car. Take us through these, issues that you've been facing all these while.
Yeah. So basically, if I talk about me, right, we have a 10-year-old diesel car, which is just parked inside our own house parking. So we can't take it out. It's illegal. And I'm just going to say one thing, that this policy in itself is illogical, right? No car can be determined whether it's road fit or not just by seeing its age, right? Nowhere in the world this has been the criteria. The criteria is the odometer reading, right? How many kilometers it has done. And secondly, it's the thing that they are not giving us the chance to prove whether our vehicles are fit or not, right? I have a 10-year-old diesel car. Give me a chance to prove if my vehicle is fit, have a fitness test, right? They are not even putting the finances on fitness tests. They are not having the fitness centers. And they're telling us just scrap it, put it in a crusher in 10 years. That's illogical. And also, as per a research which was published in Hindustan Time, the private vehicle pollution is just 5%. Less than 5%. So you are saying you want to scrap our cars because the pollution just contributes to 5%, right? That's illogical. That's dumb, honestly. And also, what about scrapping of old cars? Scrapping of old cars is done in Delhi, in Mayapuri. You go in Mayapuri and it's a pile of all these cars just lined up, right? So scrapping of old cars causes more pollution than any car which has done any number of kilometers. No one's taking these points, and it's just illogical. And secondly, it's the implementation. How can you just take away my car without a notice, without anything, even a notice? Why? Just like the law in itself is draconian, right? The law should be like, you should be fined. If the law should exist, it should be a fine. It should not be just direct scrapping, right? I don't think that's the kind of way a government should like function. This is a democracy, I guess. And yeah, I'm just going to say that. And also senior citizens. How can senior citizens buy a new car every 10 years, like, and just crush their old cars? That's not possible, honestly. So that's all my concerns.
Okay, Mr. Sahil, how do you really look at what the Delhi High Court has said today and overall this law in itself? Because while like we were just hearing Ritvik say that it's probably not even feasible for senior citizens or many of the people living in Delhi to keep changing cars every 10 years. It's not as if the government is giving any sort of subsidy because they're bringing in such a law.
Yeah, hi Deepak. What transpired in court was rather more than emotional values attached to it. What was in fact discussed was the points on law. So far as the notification or the office memorandum that was passed under Section 2D by the Commissioner of Transport, that was found to have been in excess of power, because under Section 2D of the Motor Vehicle Rules, where they claim that they have passed this office memorandum under Section 2D, that only speaks of the definition of commissioner and nothing else. That nowhere envisages any powers in the commissioner to pass such orders. And even otherwise, the minister has said so, that he has given no such approval to any of these office memorandums. They were never put to him. And today, whoever appeared on behalf of, there was one Mr. Alam who appeared on behalf of the commissioner, who despite orders of the High Court, despite High Court checking with him that under what capacity were these orders passed, had no answer to this and only claimed that these were passed under Section 2D, which was read over in court, and it was found that it has no such power to pass any such orders. In fact, the Honorable High Court also had put to them, as you had rightly pointed out, that whether any notices were given. And it was sadly so, it was found that no notice was given. In fact, the only answer that they were giving was that they had sent across SMSs, which of course could not be traced down whether there was or who all received these SMSs, but no public notice, of course, was given, which was completely in violation of principles of natural justice and otherwise, that without hearing somebody, without giving them an opportunity to remove their cars, how can they be saddled with such orders where their cars are being seized and without any hearing? Also, what was being discussed was that now what is the fate of these cars and what is the fate of the owners of these cars? And what was discussed was that will the judgment operate in rem or in personam, meaning thereby that does this judgment hold good for everybody out there, or is it only for the petitioners who approach the court? Therefore, the court has held that so far as the judgment is concerned, that will hold good only for the petitioners. But the Delhi government has been given directions to, or the respondents therein were given directions to come up with a policy so that the court is not flooded with all such petitions. Also, in order to ensure that all these others who are suffering now may not come to the High Court directly, they may go and approach the nodal officer which was appointed today to get their cars released moving forward, so that there are no floodgates that are opened that everybody now has to go and approach the Honorable High Court. They may straight away go and approach the nodal officer, who, subject to an undertaking being given that these cars are not plied in Delhi, shall release them. And once the cars are removed, an affidavit to this effect will be filed with the nodal officer.
Sahil, just for clarity of our viewers, what happens if the car has already been scrapped?
If the car has been scrapped, then provided if you had a stay order from the Honorable High Court, then you'll file for contempt and civil proceedings so far as damages are concerned. But of course, the Honorable High Court had rightly pointed out that we may not be able to assist in a writ petition if the car has been scrapped, and there were people who were complaining that despite stay orders from the Honorable High Court, their car has been scrapped, and of course, they are liable for contempt proceedings. And otherwise, damages again cannot be sought in a writ petition. The Honorable Court was very clear that if there are any damages to the car,
been many cars that have already gone to the scrapyard. So what happens to them?
Those who have already gone to the scrapyard, they will have to go and approach now the nodal officer which has been appointed today. And if scrapped, they will have to file for contempt if they had a stay order. If there is no stay, then they will have to, of course, claim damages, but in another suit altogether. It cannot happen before this court in these proceedings. for sure. Then there were also petitions where it had been alleged that demands of 10,000, 20,000 are being raised by these scrap dealers to release the car, which was also a major concern.
Okay,
But the
so I'll
Honorable
just
High
now
Court has
to
fixed
understand this better. Now, as far as for the people in Delhi is concerned, it's not as if their troubles are all over, because even if they get their car released, they cannot drive it around in Delhi. So, is there a plan legally to approach the courts against this law in itself?
No, so the idea is that there is no mandate now, so far as at the moment is concerned, to get this car released, or otherwise you will have to approach the nodal officer, and they are directed to come up with a policy for all these grey areas which are yet to be covered. They have been directed to come up with a policy or a direction as to how to deal with all these people whose cars have been already seized, or those who are yet to be seized but are above the age limit as of now. There will be guidelines which will be coming in post the orders.
Okay, Ritvik, when you look at all of these developments that are coming to the fore, are you glad that, somewhere at least the courts have come to the rescue of the people?
Of course, all these matters were listed, and it is only with the intervention of the Honorable High Court that the Honorable Minister decided to pass those directions, which he did today. Then it was only with the intervention of the Honorable High Court that today we have some clarity on what is going to happen. Otherwise, the commissioner or the representative representing him today in court, they were very clear that once the vehicle is seized, because they have not sought any NOC from us before seizure, now there is no question of any release of the cars. They were pretty adamant, despite intervention of the Honorable High Court, to come up with a consensual order where they are willing to release. They were quite adamant that they are not willing to release these cars, as they were plying against the orders. And despite the High Court asking them to come up with a proposal, there was none. They were very clear that they do not wish to release these cars anymore, as there no extension, no NOC otherwise was sought from them prior to the seizure. No undertaking was given.
Right, Ritvik, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say like it's for sure a victory. It's a day to like celebrate. But the thing is that this is not the end. Like even if the car is not scrapped, right, we can't ply it on Delhi roads, right? We can't ply it in NCR. And I would say the policy in itself is wrong in the first place, right? Okay, first of all, Kailash Gahlot some months ago like passed a statement like there's going to be no scrapping and cars will not be seized from people's home, right? But the transport department and all these Pineview Technologies and all these scrapping companies still continued. Right, they did not stop at that time. Now it's the High Court, and it's I think it's going to stop now at least. But still, like this is not the end, and the end is like the removing of this policy. If not removing, at least modification of this policy, because it's the policy for me. I don't think like even if you don't scrap my car, what's the use if I can't ply it on like roads, right? So that's all I'm going to say.
Right. Sahil, coming back to you, because, this is where the issue lies. Like Ritvik was pointing out, he says that the issue is not over because still there's confusion about whether you can fly on the streets, go to the nodal officer, whether only the petitioners who are involved in this particular case get the benefits here. So is there a possibility where all the people who feel that they could be benefited, there could be, advocates that could come together, file a petition on their behalf and make sure that it is about the policy more than just, individual cases?
No, I'm pretty clear that one thing, the court is very clear that you cannot ply these vehicles as of now. If there are sentimental values, they will preserve them. That has to be dealt with. They will have to preserve these cars, and they are not permitted to ply. So are we. All those cars which have met their end as of now, which holds good by the orders of the Honorable Supreme Court, they cannot ply. They have been directed to tow them outside Delhi. So most of us today gave an undertaking that we will ply them outside Delhi, either by towing them or otherwise, but we are definitely not letting them ply on the roads. The other concern was that, in fact, those cars which pass through Delhi, what is the fate for them? So the Honorable High Court was very clear. All those who pass through Delhi must meet the age criteria. In case they are above that age limitation, they may be liable for action. That's pretty clear. You cannot even pass through Delhi if you do not have the permit of that age limit, so-called age limit of 10 and 15-year-old cars. If you do not meet them, then obviously you cannot even pass through Delhi at the moment. There is complete clarity from the Honorable High Court on that. You cannot pass through Delhi if your
no, that's where I'm asking you, Sahil. Is there a possibility that all the people, aggrieved citizens here, can come together? Is there a fresh petition that's possible? What are the possible legal recourses available with them, apart from what you did mention?
Of course. So that cause of action for what you're suggesting will be post the government policy, which may come out now. Depending on that, post that, we may approach the Honorable High Court challenging that policy if there are any shortcomings or if there are any grey areas. But so far as today's orders is concerned, it does not deal with that because that was nowhere prayed for. It was not in the nature of a PIL. Today's petitions were more in the nature of personal litigation where people were personally affected. They were nowhere in the nature of a PIL or that it could deal with all those issues. At the moment, it is only a direction to the government to pass such guidelines. Once those guidelines comes, we'll have to see if they deal with these issues for everybody else as well. If they don't, then those will have to be challenged or otherwise before the Honorable High Court, of course.
So Ritvik, when you speak to several people, is there a plan as far as aggrieved citizens are concerned? Like Mr. Sahil was pointing out that today's issue, of course, was taken up on a very individual level. Is there a plan to have an advocate probably address these issues, go in for a writ petition? Is that something that's on the minds of the citizens?
Yeah, basically, the thing is that for a lot of petitioners, right, the cost of like filing a petition is more than the cost of the car itself. Right, so a lot of people are not coming up for that reason itself. But if people unite, of course, there's a solution. I guess everyone knows, the government knows, the politician knows that this policy is not right. This policy is not like lawful in a sense, honestly. So I think, but that's the issue we are facing. Not a lot of people are coming up. Like a lot of Delhi citizens are affected by this. But if you see like how many people are coming up, it's not that much. But now they are. After this law, after Mirror Now campaign, and I would thank Mirror Now for taking this issue up. Like I think Mirror Now is the only one who took this, and that's the reason why we got this High Court order today. And also, Mr. Tajinder Singh was a petitioner. He was a senior citizen, and he filed a petition, right? And 70,000 people signed it. 70,000 is a big number. But after that, he took it forward, but at a point, there was no like replies. There was nothing from the government that would help him. So at the end, he is still fighting, but there's no solution to it. So I think if people unite.
But Ritvik, you're saying, of course, the legal cost is going to be high. But Sahil as well is on the panel here. Sahil, when you have multiple people who can come together, of course, as far as PILs are concerned, there are advocates who would be out there to take up these sort of issues. And, of course, some of them would do it pro bono. There are also, of course, instances where collectively, individuals do come in and seek a PIL in such a case. So, is there a forum where Sahil, they could go to, if you could, give our viewers who are watching and Ritvik alike, some advice on this front?
I'd say I myself am guilty of that. Costs are definitely high. I can't deny that. The cost of litigating is definitely high. And yeah, if the more the merrier, if there are more people involved in this, then of course we can definitely have a platform through your channel, through you or otherwise, to ensure that if all of us come together, we can challenge it and things will be more convenient and much more cost effective. It may virtually cost nothing. And I would also say that this is not just a concern for citizens, it is also a concern for car dealers. Now, they are dealing in these 10-year-old cars, 15-year-old cars, because they have quite a high value in resale market outside Delhi, where they are pretty much permissible to ply, and they are also facing this difficulty. So they have their commercial aspects involved. For people who have their own sentimental or emotional values attached and want to ply the car outside, then of course, yes. And if they wish to preserve it, then they may approach the Honorable High Court. But I'm again very clear that if they have to ply it, that's not happening in Delhi at the moment. That for that, there is a bigger challenge which may be required. But if they wish to preserve it, they have the means to preserve it, that can be done. But not plying on the streets. That's
right.
Not happening for now. That will be virtually challenging.
Right, Sahil, thank you there for giving our viewers a little bit of clarity into what happened in court today, and of course what can they expect and how can they plan their next move as well. I thank Ritvik as well for sharing his views. We are moving on at this point in time, thanking both our panelists, and at Mirror Now here, of course, we'll continue to keep this particular story, of course, as top focus. Now, when it comes to damages caused to vehicles in the process of towing away, meanwhile, the petitioners, of course, have been demanding compensation towards repairing the damage while rightfully claiming a violation of their fundamental rights. The petitioners petitioners have even said that the Transport Department should face court-ordered probe for its seizure drive as it took away cars without following any sort of due process laid down by the law.
I would definitely ask them and request them to stop the tussle between the government ministers and the officers, first of all, because due to their tussle, as you are aware today, the Mr. Gahlot, the Minister of Transport Department, Delhi, has today came up with another notice to the respective officers there in the Transport Department, asking them to follow the SOPs, that is standard operating procedures and other guidelines, which has been laid down perfectly in the NGT order as well as in the Supreme Court orders. But actually, in the ground, in the zero ground level, it is not been implemented properly. The officers there in the Transport Department go in their own wish and their own way, as though they are acting as in hand in glove with the scrappers, mafia, actually. Very actually. In fact, in my case, a case property has been, literally snatched out without giving any prior notice or following any SOPs. It is just they are into something like, misinterpreting the total law or the guidelines or the rules laid down by the Honorable NGT and the Honorable Supreme Court. That is what has happened, because there should be an awareness program whenever a government tries to implement or government authority tries to implement any order in the benefit of the citizen. Then definitely there should be a propaganda run by them, or there should be an awareness program first they would have done. Thereby the citizens of the country or the state would have given their appropriate suggestion, as my predecessor has just been conveying about giving a suggestion, a very valid suggestion what he has placed. It should not be age-based. The car should not be age-based. It should be pollution-based.
The High Court was very liberal today. They said there is no policy of scrapping. So how could the government go ahead with the scrapping of the cars without there being any policy? Then they came out with certain they chopped out certain policies. The court said, see, we are having two issues here. One is parking at the public place. So if something vehicle is parked on the public place, it can be removed by the agencies or MCD if it is above 15 years age car. If it is a petrol, 15-year cars, and if it is a diesel, 10 years. Now, the parking, if somebody is having parking area in front of his house or in the society, but he should have a designated parking. If there is a designated parking, then you can give an undertaking, because the GNCT has come out with a policy. If you have a parking place at your residence, you can give an undertaking to the authority, and you can release your car.
It has been, I think there has been some connivance, at a level of government and the scrapping agencies. They simply took advantage of the Supreme Court and NGT order on the old vehicles, which are about 10 years and 15 years of age. Now, in order to take advantage of that, they started, picking these vehicles and say that, since it is no more valid license, it will be taken away, and there is no other way but only to scrap it. But to scrap it after, number one, how you can take a vehicle without a notice. So none of the Delhi residents have been given, a week's notice minimum, before their vehicles were taken away. So you actually don't get a chance to, to show your papers, to actually show whether you have a valid RC or not, whether you have sufficient space for parking a vehicle inside your premises or not.
And if it is to be removed, the NGT says that you can remove it, tow it away, and fine. You cannot destroy it. You cannot. Now, when you say tow it away, tow it away where? Tow it away to a spot where legally it is permissible. So if you tow it away from one part of Delhi to another part of Delhi, you are actually compounding the crime. From one area of an illegal parking, you are now putting it in another area of illegal parking. So I think these are open issues, and we should not prejudge the action of the Delhi government, of the transport department, because but the issue remains: is it correct? Is it correct to just decide a vehicle is polluting just because it is 15 years old, a petrol vehicle? I mean, the case was mentioned of a particular officer. My case is similar. I also had an old car, a Toyota, running beautifully, run only 25, 30. I had to sell it and buy an expensive car at 10 times the cost, at a price I could not afford. So the point is, earlier also there was a law which said after 15 years, you have to get a fitness certificate.
Having said that, then the government ultimately, based on the guidelines, the orders passed by the NGT, which had become to that extent final, passed various orders which included also the scrapping rules, and under the question of end-of-life vehicles. And end-of-life vehicles itself, which were deregistered, could be taken and scrapped. And the idea was to actually benefit the people who were being otherwise prejudiced, and secondly, to benefit the environment. These are the principal concerns that actually confront us as on today, particularly with Delhi facing its serious problems on pollution and environmental hazards, etc. So question of if it's not deregistered, yes, it doesn't come within the purview of removing and putting up to scrap. That itself is something contrary possibly. However, the principle of going to scrapping on unregistered or deregistered vehicles is there. The principle was that the citizen should benefit. So it wasn't for individual citizens' benefit. It was for the reducing pollution. But again, having said that, I do know that when we confronted this issue, we did point out, for the common man's sake, that ultimately the effect of removing the 10-year and 15-year-old petrol and 10-year-old diesel vehicles would not really have any substantial impact on the reducing the pollution. So really, it's a catch-22 situation. And what you say, as I said, is something that we discuss across, that when you don't have the Motor Vehicles Act, which itself defines an end to vehicles or end-of-life vehicles, because of its years, because that is not the criteria. The criteria is otherwise pollution controls, other controls, fitness controls of the cars, which really have to prevail. So these are very touchy questions. However, as things stand, the order remains, and that is what is being implemented by the government as such on deregistered vehicles. So when Delhi government takes its action, it's a question mark.
Time for a quick break. Stay with Mirror now. We'll be back with more news and updates.